Layer 10. God, there's how many? Right, we got 60 slides to go. Come on, we can do this. More 1994 nonsense. Semi-targeted effects. I'm going to just quote what Siberian Rabbit said at the start of this. A semi-targeted effect is, from what I've managed to gather after very many moons of rulings archaeology, defined as it follows. We cannot even begin to pretend that this is an actual targeted effect, but it does force you to choose creatures, which is apparently the exact same as targeting in these situations. You're not allowed to target a creature that's protected, so it completely ignores creatures with protection. And the mighty list of semi-targeted effects is Balance and Drop of Honey. Just these two. Wonderful. Maybe juxtaposed when that comes out later this year. Amazing. I'm not going to talk more about 1994 rules now. It was a weird time. It's just weird. So let's talk about stuff that actually matters. Opposition agent versus matters. Opposition agent versus transmute artifact. You have an opposition agent which allows you to control your opponents while they're searching their libraries. Your opponent casts transmute artifact. So they sacrifice an artifact and search their library for an artifact card. So you're controlling them during the time that they're searching their library for an artifact card. Then that card gets exiled once they choose it. But at that point, there is no, because it's changed zone essentially. They're expecting it to be in the library. They're expecting to search for this and go, oh, it's in my library. I will be able to pay X to cast it or put it. Pay X and put it onto the battlefield. Because it's in exile, there is no the original player can still choose to pay X at that point. Doesn't do anything. It can't find the transmuted artifact in exile from the transmute artifact spell. It's really like kind of weird. It's basically due to zone change effects. You can still choose to pay it. It just does nothing. The only the opposition agent player can actually find that spell. Radiant Performer versus Mutate. The end result of copying a Mutate spell with Radiant Performer. Radiant Performer says, if you cast it from your hand, choose a target spell that I'm going to say the bits that are irrelevant. Target spell that targets only a single permanent. Copy that spell for each other permanent the spell could target. Each copy targets a different one of those permanents, and each one of those permanents. If you have mutated onto a permanent and that spell is on the stack, that means you can mutate onto all of the creatures that you control, and it creates token copies of all mutate creatures that you have. So it will generate a token mutate copy of every creature you every non-human creature you control. I think that I'm trying to remember the exact wording for mutate, but it's basically every non-human creature you control. You'll get a copy of the mutate spell, and it will create a token copy. Yeah, it won't target Radiant Performer because it's a human, but everything else is fine. So yeah, you get a whole bunch of token permanents. Hooray! And they all get mutated on. Which is exciting too. So yeah, if it's a Sea Dasher Octopus, get to draw a bunch of cards, which is fun. Next one up, Jegantha and Embodiment of Agonies. So Jegantha is the only card in Magic the Gathering that cares about mana symbols in a split card's mana cost. So the mana cost of a split card is the combined mana cost of its two halves. The split card's colours and mana value are determined from its combined mana cost. An effect which refers specifically to the symbols in a split card's mana cost sees separate symbols rather than the whole mana cost. So the example here is from the comprehensive rules. Fire and Ice's mana cost is total mana cost is 2 blue, red. It has the same mana cost as Steam Augury, but an effect such as that of Jegantha the Wellspring sees that it contains this mana symbol 1 twice. So you can't have Fire and Ice in Jegantha. But Embodiment of Agonies just cares about the full mana cost. So as long as you have something that is a 2 blue red, it's complete. Nothing is a 2 blue red. You'll be absolutely fine. So yeah, it is the only thing that cares about mana symbols. Jegantha. and that is explicitly called out in the comprehensive rules. Ooh, events containing other events. So 616.1G, while following the events in 616.1A to F, one replacement or a prevention effect may apply to an event, and another may apply to an event contained within an event. In this case, the second event can't be chosen until after the first event has been chosen. So the example here is quite a useful one. So you ask to create a token that's a copy of Voice of All, and has the ability, as Voice of All enters the battlefield, choose a color. Doubling Season has an ability which reads, if an effect would create one or more tokens under your control, it creates twice that many tokens instead. Because entering the battlefield is an event contained within the event of creating a token, the effect of Doubling Season must be applied first, and then the effects of the two Voice of All tokens may be applied in either order. So it means that your Voice of All tokens, you get to choose different colors. Basically, you get two of them, choose different colors. It's not choose the color and then create two of them. So yeah, it's there's a subtle ordering basically. Looking back in time. Okay, so most of the time we look at the game state after an event has happened to see if it triggered. But sometimes we check immediately before an event to see if something triggered. And the biggest one of these is leaves the battlefield effects. So that's the one that we 90% of the time we look at them and go, oh yeah, okay, leaves the battlefield effects. So if something goes from the battlefield to the graveyard, we look back in time to see whether it triggered or not. However, if something is put into the graveyard from anywhere, it doesn't look back in time. So that gets triggered after the event happens. So the examples here are like, if I cast Decimate, killing Gitrog monster and a land, does the Gitrog monster trigger? No, because after Gitrog monster resolves, Gitrog isn't on the battlefield, and it can't see that a land was put into the graveyard, because it's when a land is put into the graveyard from anywhere. But I cast Decimate, killing Titania and a land. Does Titania resolve? And the answer is yes. We look at the game state immediately before the spell resolved and see that Titania was on the battlefield, and it's able to trigger off the land going to the graveyard. So yeah, that is basically it's one of these weird windows where it's like most of the time we look at before and after to say this triggered, but in this specific case we look before the event as well to see if something would have triggered. Okay, fun times. Buying your opponent a burrito as a win condition. Yo, if you make top 8, dinner's on us. So at the last Mythic Invitational, there was a meme moment where LSV was eating a burrito on camera and owning someone. The Wizards of the Coast social media manager tweeted something like, yo, if you make top 8, dinner's on us. LSV made top 8 and Wizards of the Coast bought him a burrito. And then Reddit came out and said, this is bribery and / or wagering, and wanted action to be taken. It's unclear what action they would have wanted. This is all despite the fact that the Uber level judge, Toby Elliott, the person that wrote the bribery and wagering policy in the first place, was all over the thread saying, this is not wagering, stop being weird. Yeah, it's just a bit of a fun inclusion there by Siberian Rabbit, who thought the whole fair was insanely stupid, which I think is a reasonable conclusion from that. Hans Eriksson versus Torpor Orb. So Torpor Orb doesn't stop hands. It's another of these reflexive ones, I think. So Hans Eriksson's reflexive trigger still works with Torpor Orb in play, even though a player putting a creature onto the battlefield obviously results in a creature entering the battlefield. The condition that causes the ability to trigger isn't quite the same one that Torpor Orb is preventing. So I think Hans Eriksson, I can't remember the exact wording, but has a reflexive effect that has an ability which sets up another reflexive effect, and I think it's the same thing as Massacre Girl. So if Hans had said when a creature enters the battlefield this way, then Torpor Orb does prevent it. So it's similar. I think it's similar to Taser and Massacre Girl, but slightly subtly different. All right, magical hack on Nightmare. Again, old rules. 1995, you control 5 islands, and your opponent controls 5 swamps and Nightmare. You cast control magic. Can you keep the Nightmare for yourself? So Nightmare would be power and toughness each equal to the number of swamps you control. So you wouldn't be able to keep it under the current rules. It would just die state-based actions. It's got 0/0 toughness, put into the graveyard. In 1995, after you gain control of the Nightmare, the game would see you've got a 0/0 that's about to die. So it opens up the regeneration window where you're allowed to play a regeneration effect and an interrupt. You can interrupt by using magic. So you can magical hack the Nightmare at that point to change a swamp, the word swamp, into island. And after that resolves, the Nightmare is a 5/5 and it's no longer dying. So yeah, old rules being weird. It's just the state-based action system is so much nicer than the old rules, and this is one of the examples that makes it absolutely, to me, just amazingly clear that the old system was bad. Yes, I had a video on this as well. So some tokens can be named with Pithing Needle, but what about ninja tokens? So before the Crimson Vow update, there were a handful of tokens that could be named in various formats, which was unintuitive. So like you could have named Illusion. Illusion was a card name, but it's also a token name. But there was also an interesting question. So what about Ninja? So there's no card name Ninja in Black Border, but there is a Ninja in Silver Border, and you can create ninjas via Volrath's laboratory by naming the ninja type. So Toby Elliott said that the documents are only meant to cover Black Border magic, but Jess Dunks did remark that the card Ninja has a Gatherer page, and therefore that makes it a magic card. This stayed in limbo for a while until they decided to solve the problem by making the entire debate irrelevant due to tokens now have the suffix token, so it doesn't even matter anymore. So yeah, fun times and weird. Hedronize. I'm not entirely sure why Hedronize is on here. It's a bit of a weird one. It is a scrapped mechanic from Battle for Zendikar and Oath of the Gatewatch that made you roll an 8-sided dice, or 8-sided die rather, with fixed effects. I think these got given out at some point. I don't know why this is a weird ruling, but I would love one of these Hedron dice actually. That is a collectible I would like to have in my collection. So that should be Stoneforge Mystic. I didn't correct the title. Stoneforge and Faceless Haven's conditional banlist immunity. So Faceless Haven is a card. It's a land. It's banned in standard. But it can be played in standard if you really want to. But you can only play it in standard if you play the mono white aggro challenger deck. So it is banned unless you're playing a challenger deck. In that case it's not banned. So yeah. Same thing happened for Stoneforge Mystic. There is a precon where Stoneforge Mystic is legal, unless you I think it was for modern at the time. So you could play the precon in modern, and it would be completely legal. But then Stoneforge was banned at the time. Yeah, white cards seem to be bannable. Who knew? Quicksilver Elemental, one of my favorite cards ever. Yeah, this is one of the things that got me into weird magic. It has the ability to gain all activated abilities of target creature until end of turn. So most of the problems with this card are fixed by the linked abilities rules. So you can't just gain abilities from multiple permanents and then mix and match the little bits of the ones that you want. The fun thing here is the ruling with Leonin Bowler. So if Leonin Bowler is an equipment which says equipped creature has tap, unattach Leonin Bowler, I think deal 2 damage, something like that. So if you Quicksilver Elemental to gain the activated ability of a creature equipped with Leonin Bowler, you can pay. You can tap that creature and unattach your opponent's Leonin Bowler to do the effect of Leonin Bowler. So yeah, you can unattach somebody else's equipment as part of the cost of activating the copied ability of Quicksilver Elemental, which seems like it should be a problem, but isn't. I guess. Because yeah, you're completely allowed to do that. So yeah, fun times. So double major Gorex. Yeah, Gorex the Tomb Shell. Whenever it attacks or dies, you choose a card at random exiled with Gorex and put that card into its owner's hand. So an additional cost, you can exile creature cards from your graveyard to make it cheaper. There is no confirmation apparently about how they want it to work, but if you double major it, so if you create a token copy, if you create a copy of the spell with double major, the copy should be able to retrieve cards exiled with the original. Apparently there's a similarity with Hoffrey and Doubling Season. I don't know the rules for definite behind this one. It's probably fine. It probably does work this way. I haven't checked it on Magic Online. Again, we're getting into the weird bits of Magic at this point. So yeah, expect some dragons. 502.9D. Ignore this rule. Okay, so originally comprehensive rules said 502.9D. An attacking creature with trample ignores any blocking creatures that can't have damage assigned to them, which was confusing because it wasn't clear if it meant to include protection, which it wasn't. It was all about the creature Fog Bank. So after they reworded Fog Bank to be more clear, they just kept the rule there, but they changed it to 502.9D. Ignore this rule. So if you're a fan of rules, I don't think this is still there, but certainly it can give the locator wizards.com/locator a bit of a run for its money for fun rules. The Jared Carthalion rule is incomplete. So if the monarch leaves the game, the active player becomes the monarch at the same time as that player leaves the game. If the active player is leaving the game or there is no active player, the next player in turn order becomes the monarch. If no player still in the game can become the monarch, the game continues with no monarch. Try saying monarch 3 times. It says that the next player in turn order becomes the monarch, but it doesn't say what happens when that player can't become the monarch either. It's just left implied that it carries on round in turn order. So basically, they just need the rule here is incomplete, and they probably need to reword it to say that you repeat this process in turn order until nobody becomes the monarch or somebody becomes the monarch. So yeah, it's just a bit of a weird rules oversight at the moment. Pro Tour on Honolulu. Do not research. Yes, it's powerful stuff here. Yeah, I'm not going to go too deep into it. If you want to read this, the link is there. Yeah, if you know what it's about, you know what it's about. Platinum Angel is a powerful card. So we'll move on from that. Karn in Time. So can you ultimate Karn Liberated once time in the round is called? So the MTR says that no game can be started once time is called, and the comprehensive rules that says when Karn ultimates, we stop the current game. We've already been over this rule. You know, Karn ultimates, we stop the current game, we're starting a new game. But Toby Elliott says it's not starting a new game, we're just restarting the current game. So who knows? Whoever, I think the next time anyone hits this in any sort of relevance, we'll find out. Presumably the head judge at that point will try and work that out. But yeah. Floral Spuzzem is still making a decision. So if you've never seen Floral Spuzzem before, if it attacks an opponent and it is not blocked, and then Floral Spuzzem may choose to destroy a target artifact under that opponent's control and deal no damage. Now you'll notice that Floral Spuzzem is making the decision here, not us. Floral Spuzzem cannot speak, but if it could, it might destroy target artifact. So until that point, we're just going to be sat back here and waiting. So yeah. Moving on.